The Legend of Grila Hila, as recounted by Homer Beardall. This is a true story told to me by my grandfather. Among the foothills of West Mountain and many other areas along the Rocky Mountains roams the legendary Grila Hila. Nobody is sure who or what Grila Hila exactly is. The footprints of Grila Hila have been seen in the mud and winter snow, no doubt wandering the countryside looking for something to eat, or perhaps some other purpose. Footprints too large for any normal man to have left. Grila Hila has the skin of a bear, or perhaps wears bear pelts to protect him during the cold winter months. West Mountain lies near the homes of many who claim descent from those ancient Viking tribes of the distant Northlands, including Iceland. Long ago in those faraway lands roamed fearsome warriors known as berserkers. Their name means bear shirt and the tongue of their dead language, and they fought in a frothing trance of savage energy, a rewilding of the animal side that dwells within all men. My great-grandmother spoke to me of this animal nature within mankind. She told me it comes from a person's philogia. When a person is born, their soul becomes entwined with that of some other creature. From that moment on, both their spirits and destinies are linked and shared. Sometimes a bit of something that was originally intended for one of them is transferred to the other. It is not uncommon for this other creature to be the soul of an animal born near the same time as the person. Look close enough and it is possible to see these traits, these bits of a person's philogia that have passed on from animal to human, within their habits, personality, sometimes even in the way they look. Prospectors, amateur and professional alike, have roamed this same countryside for generations, since before even the first settlers began constructing the small villages and communities that would grow into the cities they are today. For it was not so long ago that the entire area was nothing but savage frontier wilderness in every direction, inhabited only by wild animals and the occasional tribe of wandering hunter-gatherers who followed a way of life long forgotten by civilized man. Prospectors have located cave drawings painted across the countryside over countless generations. Among these drawings can be seen pictures of a man-like creature with bear-like skin and fearsome claws. Some of these pictures show the creature with horns, but it is impossible to say if they grow from the thing's head or it merely wears them as a trophy to celebrate its hunting prowess. My grandfather took us on many camping trips and let me witness some of these drawings with my very own eyes. These days, the area north of West Mountain is home to the largest mine in the world, so large that the operation has practically moved a mountain, and it is also the largest excavation ever performed by mankind. While trucks, tractors, electrical lighting, and modern-day machinery have improved the productivity and health of miners today, these things have also sapped the spirit of exploration, independence, and resourcefulness inherent in the old-time miners. In those days, mining was more than just a quest for gold. More so, it was an enterprise of exploration and discovery, an unremitting pull that drove the prospector towards a life of pure freedom and self-reliance. It was a passionate, brutal, and sometimes a violent charge into the heart of the unknown. Their iron picks stabbed into the deep and hidden places of the earth, places never seen by the eyes of men. They blazed the trails that the pioneers followed, and the settlements created by those pioneers bloomed into the civilization of today. What remains of their stories could fill many books, and what remains is but a half-forgotten sliver of the tales that they told. A number of these amateur prospectors with the old-timer spirit still search the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, looking for gold. A number have spent their entire lives living in abject poverty, so committed to their search for gold and hidden treasure that they shunned a traditional lifestyle. More than a few have taken up spelunking in the deep caves, caves of mystery and hope and dreams. Even caves of solid crystal walls, their eyes ever searching for veins of gold, and their ears ever filled with the haunted echoes of their dead brethren. The entrances of some of these caves are found even below the waters of lakes and ponds, where they eventually rise up into dark, air-filled, cavernous pockets. It is said that some of them contain the hidden treasures of Montezuma, the same Montezuma who ruled the Aztec Empire when Hernan Cortez and the Spanish conquistadors came to explore Mesoamerica. It was said that some of the conquistadors fled north, carrying treasure that they hid in these lands that even the Aztec dare not travel, and woe to any who might find it. For this treasure is cursed, as are all the treasures of these lands, and what the spirits of these lands consider treasure is not always immediately obvious. Not far south of West Mountain is a petrified forest. to which many tourists visit. Many have thought to take a chunk of petrified wood, a small memento of their travels. However, this land is considered a sacred treasure to the spirits that dwell there, and they curse any who would dare sacrilege their temple. For these spirits are the spirits of nature, and their temples are the wild, untamed lands themselves. Many a visitor has had to return their stolen memento in hopes of removing the bad luck caused by the curse, placed on them for disturbing the sacred home of the spirits. The warriors of the Aztecs were split into societies. Among these societies were the Eagle and Jaguar Knights. Much like the bare-shirted berserkers of the distant Viking Northlands, these knights wore a costumed armored harness that linked them to their warrior society. The Eagle warriors decorated their battle harness with eagle feathers and a helmet shaped like an eagle's head. The Jaguar warriors wore protective hides and jaguar pelts. Their goal was not only to defeat their enemies, but to take as many captives as possible to be sold as slaves or sacrificed to their gods. Montezuma much loved his gold. It came to pass that the Aztec warriors took slaves and had them mine gold, even so far north as the lands now haunted by Grila Hila. He was warned by those slaves, taken from the hunter-gatherers of these lands, the same whose ancestors drew those cave paintings, that to steal the treasure from the spirits of their lands was to invite a deadly curse. The emperor paid no heed, and the mining continued. Montezuma's fortunes grew, but with it came the curse. A small stone taken from the petrified forest can cause a lifetime of bad luck. This stolen gold caused the downfall of an empire. As was told to me by my grandfather, this gold was not to be brought here to be hidden and later retrieved. It was brought back to where it belonged. For the conquistadors had seen what fate lied in store for those who tempted the curse. Here the treasure was hidden, sealed away in hopes of never again being found, returned in the faith that the spirits of the land would remove any curse that had befallen them. One evening as the sun was setting, my grandfather went up to the canal to check the irrigation water. He had an orchard of cherry and apple trees on West Mountain, where we lived. He came from a long, unbroken line of farmers who had always respected the land, for they had always made their living by cultivating the land. He was taught from his youth to act as a steward of the land, to treat it with a loving hand rather than with a reaping scythe, and taught me the same. He had recently spotted a very large pack of coyotes roaming the foothills, and so he thought to bring his .30-30 lever-action rifle for protection. The head gate of the canal was far from the house, up on the foothills of West Mountain. Everything seemed in order with the irrigation water, but he saw something just as he was turning back home. He decided to walk further into the foothills and investigate. It was twilight by this time, and it grows darker along the foothills of West Mountain far faster than the rest of the valley. That is because the farm was on the east side of the mountain, and the sun sets behind it. Far from the foothills, one can distinctly see the shadow of the mountain stretch across the whole length of the valley, which is dozens of miles wide. As he began entering a small ravine along the foothills, he heard the howls. It was still twilight, but he was swallowed up in both the shadow of the mountain and the deep shadows of the ravine. He flicked on his electric torch and scanned the brush line, only to see what he had feared. That huge pack of coyotes had found him, and was running towards him fast. Soon he found himself with the narrow ravine at his back, and a huge pack of ravenous canines circling from his flank. He noticed then that it wasn't all coyotes. They numbered perhaps 3 dozen, and included feral dogs and several timber wolves. It might as well have been some wandering band of stripling warriors, covered in wolf pelts and battle harness. Such packs were not unheard of in these parts, vicious and feral animals that terrorized the land in their endless quest to feed their bottomless appetites. Unfearful of men, they would instead attack with a ferocious delight, intent to devour any meal they captured. My grandfather braced his rifle and fired off a shot at their feet. They were unimpressed and circled in tighter. Realizing his predicament, he had no choice and shot one dead. The others leapt back some ways, but their fear of the rifle soon abated, and they pressed in again, intent on the kill. My grandfather unleashed on them, firing every shot in his rifle. He hadn't bothered to bring extra ammo. He had fished and hunted his entire life, and his shots hit true. A half dozen of them lay dead or dying, yet still they pressed in. If anything, the death of their packmates had only made the coyotes more angry and vicious. Several of them began rushing in, and my grandfather was forced to beat them away with the butt of his rifle, which he held by the barrel and was now using as a club. He was surprised again, as even a cracked skull only seemed to leave them dazed. They each still held their killing lust and determination to turn him into their next meal. The situation was dire, and my grandfather feared it was the end. Then he heard another growl, a different kind of growl. A deep, bellowing growl that echoed out across the valley, and even made the coyote pack take pause. His head turned in bewilderment, and he saw a huge shadow rise up, like some massive bear that made him feel like an ant next to a giant redwood tree. It had huge claws and was covered in bear-like fur, but it was no bear. The thing rushed out of the shadows of the ravine, straight at the coyote pack. It moved like a man. It attacked the coyotes, and they attacked the thing in return. My grandfather took the opportunity to run as fast as his legs could carry him. One of the coyotes chased him, so he clubbed it in the head. Coyote was staggered, but when it realized that it was alone, it thought twice and returned to attack the thing with the rest of the pack. My grandfather kept running until he was back home. He reloaded his rifle, and he sat in his chair near the fireplace, keeping a vigil as he could not sleep the rest of the night. It was several days before my grandfather had the courage to return to the scene of his attack. He brought a box of ammo, his Luger pistol as backup, and drove his motorized three-wheeler to be sure he wasn't taken by surprise again. There was a putrid smell, but there were no bodies. Only what was left of the guts and blood and bones of 36 canines that had been torn to shreds. There was little left of any of them. They'd been pulled apart and eaten much like that rabid pack devoured their own meals, a sort of poetic justice. My grandfather noticed a number of tracks where the battle had occurred, nature versus nature. There were his boot prints and the tracks of the coyotes. There were also huge footprints of the thing. Not bear footprints, nor any animal he knew. They went back up the ravine, the same one the thing had emerged from. He traveled as far as he could on the three-wheeler, until the path became blocked by boulders and sharp rocks, and the gorge too narrow to maneuver around them. He ended his investigation there and returned home. He already knew all he needed to know. His life had been saved by Grila Hila.